the Airproving Ground Center, tests are underway, leading to the development of a B-47 drone aircraft for use in testing air-to-air and ground-to-air defense weapon systems. For takeoff and landing the huge drone, a ground control vehicle has been developed which monitors airspeed, altitude, and engine temperature, and operates the drone controls. During the tests, a safety crew rides in the B-47. Once airborne, remote controls in a T-33 are used to fly the drone during its mission. When the mission is complete and the B-47 begins its final approach, the T-33 hands off control to the men on the ground. The QB-47 will provide more realistic evaluation of the effectiveness of our air defense weapon systems.
Major Omar Reichman of the 434th TAC Fighter Squadron, with his modification to the pilot burner of the F-104 afterburner, has solved a problem long plaguing maintenance and flying safety officials. By forcing fuel to the burner by air rather than just fuel pressure, Major Reichman eliminated the tendency for the nozzles to coke up and become clogged following engine shutdown. Tests have shown the $15 device completely successful, with a first-year savings to the Air Force of better than $250,000. Major Reichman arrives at Langley Air Force Base to receive the top award in USAF's suggestion program. On hand to welcome him to TAC headquarters is Lieutenant General William Eckert. Because of his determination and success in solving a pesky problem, the Air Force's top cash award, $1,500, and sincere thanks for a job well done go to Major Omar Reichman.
Arriving at Miami's International Airport are outstanding NCOs and their wives, representing each of the major air commands, and who will be guests of honor during the Air Force Association's 4-day convention at Miami Beach. There's plenty to do and see for these outstanding airmen who've come from as far as Morocco to the east and Okinawa to the west. A full-scale model of the X-15 and a replica of the now orbiting paddle wheel satellite are part of the aerospace panorama. And here are a couple of likely candidates for the next rocket to the moon. Could you tell me which way to the nearest water fountain? While the various displays at the panorama provoked great interest, one sidelight of the conclave was the gathering in one place at one time of many of the Air Force's top leaders. Air Force Secretary James H. Douglas heads the list of prominent speakers to address the convention. Others to speak include the Air Force Chief of Staff, General Thomas White, Commander of the Air Research and Development Command, Lieutenant General Bernard Schriever, SAC Commander-in-Chief, General Thomas Power, Commander of MATS, Lieutenant General W.H. Tunner, NORAD's new commander, General Lawrence Cuter, and General Frank Evers, new boss of Tactical Air Command. At the awards banquet, the outstanding airmen are introduced individually and receive acclaim in honor of their significant contributions toward furthering the Air Force mission. For outstanding airmen, deserved applause from their proud leaders.
This is the aftermath of one of the most severe earthquakes ever to hit the Yellowstone National Park area. In Madison Valley, west of the park, one mountain literally shook apart, avalanching an estimated 30 million tons of earth into the path of the Madison River, creating a new lake. In the nearby town of West Yellowstone, buildings too felt the frightening power of the quake. With the disaster came stranded vacationers, injury, and death to at least 10 persons. The Air Force responds with aircraft and communication equipment, and together with local officials, quickly sets about searching for the hapless victims of this caprice of nature. Most roads are destroyed or are impassable, and campers caught in the area have to rely on helicopters to take them out. For several days, the search and rescue missions go on until everyone to be found has been evacuated. In time of disaster, our Air Force is there, quickly putting lessons learned in wartime to work relieving the suffering of those in need of help.
The man in the MC-2 full-pressure suit is about to get a hot foot all over. It's part of aeromedical laboratory studies concerning the effects of heat stress on human beings. The chamber in which the test subject has been placed is designed to simulate temperatures the crew of a hypersonic vehicle would experience here. With instruments all set, the test is about to begin. Information to be collected: skin and body temperature, pulse rate, heart reaction. Quartz tube infrared lamps produce the heat, and temperatures can be raised at a rate of 100 degrees per minute. The subject's time in the chamber, 13 to 15 minutes. Careful watch is kept on the man's reaction as the temperature reaches the boiling point. Inside the chamber, it's hot enough to prepare your breakfast egg. A beaker of water boils. 500 degrees. Ever wonder what your Thanksgiving turkey feels like? Here at Wright Air Development Center, tests such as these permit aeromedical scientists to determine man's limits and what protection he'll need when facing the challenge of flight into and back from space.
No, it's not mealtime at the Sea Zoo. It's survival time at Zumazu, location of the 5th Air Force Water Survival School. This is no Sunday picnic, no wading contest. Air crews from the Air Force, Navy, Marines, and the Self-Defense Forces of Japan get the most realistic sea survival training offered anywhere. If you were to bail out over water, one of the first things to do is get out of your parachute harness. Pretty realistic, huh? Another situation, you're down at sea. You signal a rescue chopper. Here you learn how the air rescue people operate. Now get set for some sore muscles. How do you beach a 6-man life raft in a pounding surf? You get some advice. You'll probably get awfully wet and a little beat up and a little chewing. But at the end of an intensive 5 days of training, you'll be ready for anything but anything. Over 2,000 airmen a year learn life-saving lessons in the 5th Air Force's realistic Water Survival School.
Sports car enthusiasts at Andrews Air Force Base outside the nation's capital hold a competition of driving skill known as a gymkhana. The object is to drive in and around a prescribed course in as little time as possible, with a 1-second penalty for every pylon touched. Performing now, a Carmen Ghia. Next, the heavy hand of a woman driver on the responsive wheel of a TR-3. achieved another triumph. That'll cost some points. Scores are tabulated by car class, and the winners token trophies of their driving skill. Air Force personnel at Andrews find sports car driving an exhilarating pastime.
Cape Canaveral, a routine test launching of the now operational Atlas. There is one interesting added feature to this test. The missile's nose cone contains a camera set to begin photographing the Earth at the instant the nose cone separates from the afterbody of the missile. At its highest point, the camera is over 600 miles above the Earth, where nearly 1/6 of the Earth's surface is visible. This is the highest altitude from which the Earth has been photographed. Following closely the photographic atlas is another with a different mission. Replacing the nose cone in this atlas is a test model of the Project Mercury manned satellite capsule, ready for its first missile-launched flight test. Although the Atlas propulsion was not normal and the flight shorter than anticipated, the 2,000-pound Mercury capsule was recovered from the water of the range, and the test information gained proved extremely valuable. With each new probe into the cosmos, the Air Force moves a step closer to fulfilling its responsibility of developing the military aspects of exploration in space.